Hello and welcome to Raps Assistant on Air, your rapeseed podcast. My name is Rene Brands and I have again the honor today to welcome my guest from Latvia today, Oskaru Balodi from the Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center, and Elvi Lazdiņu, agronomist from the Lazdiņi farm in Latvia. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to speak today with my guest about rapeseed production in Latvia, and we want to focus on the necessary spring applications. We all know a lot about rapeseed production and what is necessary for the spring management. But if we keep in mind the last mild winters, that present pretty clear to us, we still don't know enough about this young crop rapeseed. So based on this pretty tough winter 2021, especially in East Europe, is now the question, is now everything fine and easy for harvest 21? Let's have a look together to the small details and discuss the main points for spring management 2021. Welcome to my guests, Oskar and Elvis. Guys, how are you doing?
Okay, hello Rene, hello everybody. I'm always fine, Rene, and now I'm planning the new season also. Snow has gone already. It's time to take first look on fields and see wintering results here in Latvia.
Hi Rene, hi viewers, listeners. I'm doing great, thank you. Can't wait for the new season to begin.
Oskar, I would like to introduce you to our audience, and I have checked a little bit the internet and found some information about you, which I would like to present now. You have studied on the Latvian University of Agriculture, where you finished 2006, and since 2012 you are working now on the already mentioned Latvian Rural Advisory and Training Center, where you are today the head of the crop farming department. You spent already quite a lot of time with rapeseed, especially through your PhD process, where you investigate the effect of agroecological factors like sowing date, sowing rate, and fungicide effects in autumn time on the rapeseed yield. Me personally, I'm looking really forward to speak here today with you about the different aspects of successful rapeseed production. Oskar, based on your personal experience with autumn development and the successful establishment of rapeseed before winter, can you give us an update about the autumn development of rapeseed last year in Latvia?
Yeah, okay. I'm very glad, Rene, that you took some time to look at my previous investigations during PhD thesis. Yes, I did my active research already 10 years ago, but still some things is not changing, like sowing time and etc. are still need to improve. As you maybe know, my main interest in rapeseed is mainly autumn development, so I think that good autumn development of plant before winter as a key of better wintering that is crucial in Latvian conditions to gain high yields, because we are the north border where we can grow winter oilseed rape successfully. I have to say that autumn conditions in last years in Latvia were different from previous years longer time ago. I mean, last two autumns were very long and warm. Even winter 2019 was so warm that we observed rapeseed vegetation during November and December in central Latvia. During last autumn, rapeseed crops actually accumulated a lot of active temperatures before winter, And as you can guess, decision making of PGR usage was a big challenge for farmers. Before winter, as advisor, I like to go around to look the fields and make some observations. And some words I can say is that rapeseed plants were well developed before this last winter. Roots were quite well developed. Also, this apical bed was within the normal range, around 2 up to 4 centimeters. Above ground biomass was quite huge. That gave concern about wintering. But now, in last 2 days, the plant seems good. And almost, I can say, I think 100% of farmers in Latvia were using growth regulators and microelements in autumn, and there were only some critical fields in our region that were not developed well because of the dry August, and where the germination some problems occurred. To sum up, I can say 90 to 80% of fields were in excellent condition, and maybe 10% a bit weak because of late sowing and dry conditions. I hope Elvis will agree with me as well.
Definitely, Oskar. Yeah, definitely. The plants were well developed in whole Latvia. Actually, me and Oskars, we are also working in field insurance as field experts. And in autumn, we travel around Latvia to observe insured fields. So it gives us a good perspective of the situation of rapeseed in Latvia before the winter. And from countless fields that I visited last year, I disapproved only one field. And I think that shows how good the fields were last year. The sort of problem was the opposite. As already Oskars mentioned, the huge biomass, it gave us some concern, but actually looking closer, the growth point was 2 to 3 centimeters. So the farmers have chosen very wisely their PGR strategy in autumn. So yeah, the situation is good here in Latvia.
Thanks, guys. Oskars, I would like to go a little bit deeper. You spoke about big biomass. We know that for this really successful rapeseed production and for high yield, we need a well-developed and established root system before winter. I'm curious, did you also check next to the biomass the root system? Did you take out some plants and check here the length and the size of the roots? And did the root system was able to grow below the plow sole, so below the horizon, really to establish here before winter 25, 30 centimeters already in the depth?
Okay, thank you for the question. As you know, rapeseed plant likes well-prepared soil where the root can the root has chance to reach the deeper soil layers and chance to develop the secondary roots as well. As we know, around 70%, even more, of the root mass are placed in soil up to 25 centimeters. And my previous research is as well, we observed two things clear is that hybrids have better root development if we compare to open pollinated varieties, and plants sown in the beginning of August developed longer taproot. It had chance to go through this plow hole for sure. Also, in our soil scientists university, I have found some research is quite new that in their soil excavations in deeper layers they they found some winter oilseed rape root residues even in 70 centimeters deep. So I'm sure that last autumn the rapeseed root was well developed. It's hard to pull out the plant to see the whole root system, but I'm very sure that the root was well developed. Also, there's minimal tillage. Shallow tillage came in our rapeseed technologies time ago, and always I have observed that always the better roots were developed in traditional tillage fields. Now, in last 5 years, sowing technologies in Latvia and rapeseed is changing. We are more using these subtillers during sowing. It means that soil cultivation happens in depths around 30 centimeters, even deeper. So that technology helps plant to reach the deeper horizons. That's good, especially in dry conditions. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Oskar. Ladies and gentlemen, let's also introduce our second guest, Elvi Lazdiņu from the Lazdiņi farm. Elvis, I would like to give over the voice to you. Please introduce a little bit yourself to our audience.
Once again, hello everyone. Firstly, I have to thank you, Rene and Rapul, for inviting me to this podcast. It's a great honor. And briefly about me, I'm a farmer in third generation. I have 2 bachelor's degrees, one in business and the second one, which I got last year, I have in agronomy. So I would call myself a professional farmer, as I am in farming since my childhood. Professionally, I manage 2 farms, my and my father's farm. They are located 50 kilometers apart from each other, so that's a bit challenging, but I manage that. And yeah, it's actually tough work to cope with this older generation, as our opinions do not match all the times. But I have to be thankful that my father trusts me with his farm and with all these agronomy processes. Basically, we work on 1,500 hectares. Around 400 are mine, and all the rest is my father's farm, of which 60% is winter wheat, 1/3 or 30% are rapeseed, and depending on the year, the last 5% are beans, and another 5 are some of the spring wheat or oats. It depends on the year.
Okay, thanks, Elvis. 30% rapeseed, that sounds after a really intensive production. Okay, but that can we discuss later. Elvis, I'm curious, how was the rapeseed development last autumn on your farm, and in comparison to the years before, did you see some bigger differences?
As Oskars mentioned, the last couple autumns were really favorable for rapeseed to develop. I was a bit concerned in August and in start of September, because the plants had reached only 4-leaf stage, and that's pretty small plants for the beginning of September, because in year 2019, in mid of August, they had already 6 leaves and huge biomass. So I was a bit concerned, but luckily for us, the autumn was very warm and long enough for the plants and the fields to level up. And last 2 years, as already Oskars mentioned, they were, I would say, they were not traditional for our region, The long autumns with these warm conditions, and for rapeseed, the years were really good. The autumns were really great. But if we look even further in history, year 2017 was completely different story. The autumn was very wet in year 2017, so the plants couldn't reach their stages which were good for wintering, and as a result, in year 2018, our average yield in rapeseed was only 2 tons. And of course, we have to take in consideration the dry conditions in spring and summer in 2018. But still, 2 tons. We were not working on 2 tons. And I have to say this is the interesting part in farming. Not each year is different from the previous one. We cannot have this one formula or one scheme that works on all conditions and every year. And we have to adapt to every situation that Mother Nature gives us. That's our challenge as farmers. And then to say how we adapted to these warm and dry summers, we turned to Strip-till technology in seeding or oilseed rape, because and it has proven itself as in dry August, the germination is really great, and the plants looked fantastic before wintering in 2 years in a row. Of course, I cannot state what will happen if the autumn or August will be wet. How will this technology work then? But at least for now, it's doing great.
Okay, that is interesting. Elvis, I can share with you here some experiences from our trials in Rapul. Over many years, we compare here also different sowing techniques, and there was also Strip-till included. But finally, to be honest, we didn't really found here a big impact. Even we didn't found some correlation between some of our varieties to some of the different sowing techniques. So there was more or less not really a bigger effect. There was just one point, this Strip-till in our trials worked very well, especially under wet conditions, and that is definitely a fact for north part of Germany, but overall in total, unfortunately, not really a bigger effect. So I have to ask you, did you check here the conventional sowing techniques with Strip-till in a direct comparison, and did you get some yield effects, or did it just deliver you that with Strip-till there's a better development and establishment before winter?
As Oskar's already mentioned, this kind of subtiller seeding with in oilseed rape became popular around 4 to 5 years ago. Few farms, neighbor farms, used this technology, and I thought, okay, let them use it. They stated that it's great. We are not using so many these working hours and etc. And I said, okay, you do that. I am good with our own technology, which at that time was to plow, cultivate, and afterwards seed. But as I already mentioned, then came the wet year 2017. The plants didn't develop as expected. Afterwards came very dry summer and spring in 2018, and we decided we had to change something. We opted for a horse focus drill, Strip-till drill for rapeseed, and as you know, with all new technology, you cannot go 100% in the first year. You have to try other techniques to prove that it works. And in first we used our old technology, which is plowing on around 30% of our fields. And I have to say, next year, in those fields where we used plowing, cultivating, and seeding, the yield was a bit better. I cannot explain why it is so, but it was. But next year, 2019, August was very dry. We had no precipitation for the first weeks, and I thought, okay, if I will use plow, I'm really taking a risk with the germination and plant development at the beginning of autumn. So I decided, okay, I will go with plow on only 10% of our planned acreage of rapeseed. And long story short, in October, late October, in those fields where I plowed and seeded rapeseed, there were winter wheat in that same year. That's the simple as that. We didn't have enough moisture, so that in plowed fields the rapeseed didn't germinate at all. It just standed in the ground because the moisture was not enough for them to germinate.
We have to go further. We are still in autumn time, but the topic of the podcast here today is for spring management. So, Elvis, could you share a little bit, how do you prepare your spring management for rapeseed on your farm?
Of course, Rene. It all starts in November when we are planning the purchase of nitrogen, as it takes the biggest part of our input costs in rapeseed. So the last 2 years they were easy because I saw the whole winter how oilseed rape looks at my fields. So I could plan. I knew the potential of the fields. This year, this was a bit different because we had a good amount of snow coverage. I believe it came in end of December and it melted just last week. Yeah, here we have some opinion differences about this amount of nitrogen need and usage of rapeseed. In Latvia, we have a stereotype that oilseed rape is really demanding for nitrogen. So we use around 190 kilograms of nitrogen in springtime. But I have heard from what I read and some articles that we can get a maximum yield with only 160 kilograms of nitrogen. So I want to take some experiments in my own farm in a real field with the 160 kilograms and to see how rapeseed performs with less nitrogen, what kind of amount of yield I can get. Because I think sooner or later the EU green policy will force us to cut these nitrogen usage as well. And yeah, that's my strategy for planning management for spring.
Yeah, definitely. You are on the right way already to look for yourself for some options to reduce here the nitrogen intensity, and especially, with the new varieties coming to the market, there is a new genetic behind. They definitely bring an improved nitrogen efficiency with it. So a lot of potential for future here to adapt a little bit the management. But I wanted to go in this point a little bit deeper, and so I have to repeat my question. Do you go out to the fields and check here also then the biomass before winter as a factor for adapting or then finalizing your nitrogen management?
I have to be honest, Rene. I don't weigh the green mass of the plants, but it's just my observations and data which I collect from satellites. But they just show color schemes. There are no actual units of biomass. But what I saw in autumn, all fields of rapeseed were level and homogeneous. They were the same. So they have covered the ground. The green mass was really huge.
Okay, Oskar, let's come back to you. You mentioned very nice at the beginning this very good development of the rapeseed before winter. 80-90% of the fields really well established. What are your recommendations then for the first nitrogen application? And I would like to know from you, do you see also here a trend in the market for a reduced intensity based on these new varieties with a better nitrogen efficiency?
Mm-hmm. Yes. When we think during winter about nitrogen applications in spring, I always talk to farmers that they can remember just two things, and I want to lift it up in light with you as well. In Latvia, rapeseed plants start to demand nitrogen very early. Mainly, it's already needed plant days before we actually do application, because of quite a wet field sometimes. It's already starts to regrowth. Also, we need to use spring moisture in spring. It's quite often occurs that spring, even April, is quite dry in Latvia. Last 2 years it was dry April, in central Latvia especially. And the first application have to be applied with nitrogen content for a quicker usage, around 100 to 110 kilograms of N with nitrogen. Regarding to this reducing intensities, actually there are some farmers which don't use nitrogen not more than 160 kilograms per hectare ever. Also gain very good yields, even high yields, very high yields during last 2 years. I can only guess that it's because of varieties. New varieties are coming in market with better N efficiency, maybe, yes. But for those farmers with intensive technologies like Elvis farms, which are using in total N 200 kilograms or maybe even more, I think it's a big challenge to trust the variety ability to use better N, better nitrogen.
Yeah, I can imagine. It takes a while to trust in this new genetic and to leave the old traditional way. But we already heard that there is a clear direction for the future, so that we have to adapt that if we want or not. If we keep in mind a little bit the conditions in the last years, 2018 was already mentioned, but also 2019, the springtime was pretty difficult. We had a very fast increase in temperature on one side, but on the other side, the soil was still cold and allow only a very late fertilization effect. And then on top of all of this, there come then in April quite dry conditions. So that reduced the yield organs and give then later on a very low production. Oskar, I would like to know from you. You mentioned already there is a nitrate has to be increased in the first fertilization, really to be sure that this nitrogen is immediately available for the plants. to prevent such reductions. Is there anything else important next to the nitrat?
Yeah, about nitrate, I think I partly answered it, but in my opinion, that there is almost, actually you have to remember that in Latvian conditions there is almost no risk for nitrate leaching during end of March and April, so there are no chance to lose it. Also, as I mentioned, we have to use this spring moisture that is in soil available. So apply nitrogen early as possible. Just to save yield organs, we have to use, I think, a very wide range of different microelements for foliar applications in spring during early elongation stage, and just to boost the plant. Just it starts to, that's yeah, I think also these foliar applications in early spring, it's not so easy because we have mainly very low temperatures, and then go on field with fertilizer, with liquid fertilizers is yeah, it's not so easy. Have to think before we do it.
Okay, thanks, Oskar. Elvis, we have heard now the theoretical advices and the theoretical perspective. I think our audience is interested to hear now from you the practice way. Could you please share with us your fertilization strategy for nitrogen, and what are the main key factors for you then to decide the final dosage?
Yeah, my main key factor is my dad and his experience. That's the number one. But jokes aside, I have a huge responsibility for our farms and for our finances as well. So I cannot risk and say just, okay, we will cut nitrogen by 30 kilograms. It's impossible. That's why I want to make this experiment at my own farm this year with specific variety and to see what will happen in autumn, what kind of yield I will get. But yeah, these as I already mentioned, we use 190 kilograms of nitrogen, and it has proven that it works. We get a sort of good yields, and but I have to be honest, I totally agree with your previous guest from Sweden that the farmers shouldn't run for the bigger yields. They should run for good yields with lower inputs. That's the future. What I see how it should be in farming. But for now, our technology is, as I already mentioned, 195 kilograms of ammonium nitrate in springtime, and 48 kilograms of sulfur. We do it in 3 applications. Firstly, we start when the vegetation starts. We use a good amount of nitrogen, around 115, 117 kilograms per hectare. But it depends on the product at which year we use. As I already mentioned, this year we will use ammonium nitrate. And second application is 4 to 7 days from the first one. We do it very concentratedly, and then we use ammonium sulfate, 200 kilograms, which gives us 42 kilograms of nitrogen and 48 kilograms of sulfur. And we finish with when the rapeseed is in stem elongation phase, we use another 30 to 35 kilograms of nitrogen. So in order to prove my hypothesis, I have to cut the third application, and then I will have this 160 kilograms of nitrogen.
Oskar, can you agree with this strategy? Just a short answer.
Yes, it's common nitrogen strategies we use in intensive farming in Latvia. Also, second application goes very soon. Sometimes it's week or 10 days after the first application. In farm practice, normally we start with rapeseed application, then we go to the winter wheat, and then when the winter wheat is done, it's actually 1-2 days to rest and go again. Go again with second application. Okay, this. Yes, there are. It depends on products what farmers are using. We can split the second application or not. It depends on product. There are some products in market like nitrogen and sulfur ratio 26:13. It's very good to put to give the plants whole nitrogen and sulfur is needed in one application. So it depends on farms, but yeah.
Let's have a look a little bit deeper on this fertilization, as it is really important then for the later yield processes. Oskar, may you could give us some more data about the right time of this second application, and may you can share some further personal experiences with us.
Yes, we have to remember that in Latvia, this rapeseed vegetation starts very early. Well, it's not so early, but sometimes quite late in the beginning of April. It means that there are actually 4 to 5 weeks before plant starts to flower. In the first of decade of May, actually, it doesn't. It starts every year. It starts to flower in the beginning of May. Is it early or late spring? Doesn't matter. So this demand of nitrogen is enormous. These 4 or 5 weeks. That's it. Also. I think I suggest for farmers good advice that as already Elvis said, we have to give this second application also quite early, because during later stages these plants start to assimilate this nitrogen from leaves, from stems to the pots, and the root doesn't work so effective as we want. And as we remember, there are a lot dry conditions during May and during April. So I think Elvis is doing a good strategy.
We touched already sulfur a little bit, and we have heard from you, Elvis, that you pay attention really to this element as one of the main key factors for a successful nitrogen management. I would like to know from you, Elvis, do you apply this sulfur in once, or do you also work with later foliar applications like with magnesium sulfate on your farm?
We use ammonium sulfate as this hard fertilizer, and afterwards we normally old scheme was to use magnesium sulfate. But last year was a bit different, because our partner, where we deliver our production, introduced a bonus payment scheme for oil content above 40%. So I was encouraged to boost this oil content in rapeseed. And we all know that the sulfur has a lot to do with the oil content. So I added extra manganese sulfate as a liquid fertilizer on leaves. But I have to be honest, I didn't achieve the desired oil content. Our average was 40 or below 40%. And I think the oil content is in hands of Mother Nature or variety. That's my opinion. Actually, it's a really interesting story. We used, believe it or not, we are speaking about Mercedes. It's the Rapple variety. I had the same variety, Mercedes, in our basis farm, which is located in really good soils, rich soils, and I had Mercedes in our other farm with poor soils. The technology was the same. Plant protection, fertilizer scheme, it was the same. The yield in poor soils was about 3.5 tons, and I had 43% of oil content. In richer soils, I had 3.8 tons per hectare, and I had 38 to 39% of oil content. But I have to say the last year was something really interesting. It was really challenging for farmers. From what I observed during the spring season, I saw these huge rapeseed plants, and I thought, okay, there will be 5 tons. I visited Lithuania. The situation was as well there the same. But afterwards, after the season, I called my colleagues and asked what was the yield, and they all stated it was 3.8 to 4.3 tons, and they all were disappointed. They expected a lot more. And right before the harvest came hailstorm, and a lot of fields were completely damaged from hail. But luckily for us and other farmers, our fields were insured. And actually, it was a good experience for me as a farmer. I could observe some tolerance against the hail between different varieties.